I know it's hard. I know you're tired. If you quit now, you'll never know what will happen. If you quit now, you'll never know if you win or you lose. If you quit now, won't you wonder what could have been? So what are you going to do? Try again. No one knows when the ride stops, so you might as well give it all. Give it all you got and give it just a little more than you think you can, because you never know. Friends, this is the Formless Podcast, episode number 73, with Tyler, the superhuman, and me. Not 73. Did I say 73?
63, right?
63. I just jumped ahead 11 episodes. 63. Oh, my Lord.
Now we have to go back and record 10 other back episodes.
Yeah. No. We'll record 10 and then put this one out on number 11. Oh my God.
You saw the look on my face.
Yeah, you went like, are you sure? Are you sure? Dude, what's been happening?
Well, it's been a good last week here, and still plugging away on movie stuff, and
you got some big news about that.
Yeah, so we have a premiere here in our hometown, Reading. We're in the big theater in Reading, the Cinemark Theater. So we've got the premiere for this town. We already had the movie premiere in another town. Yeah. But we've got the premiere here in a couple weeks. So really planning that out. I'm also looking at distribution for my film. I talked with a distributor yesterday, and talking about different areas where we can get the film in. And so one of the places I'm looking at right now is like airlines. Like, can I sign a distribution deal with an airline? So, and there's a lot of airlines need movies to show people while you're flying, so I'm looking at that. No guarantees on that, but yeah, I'm still plugging away. I've got some other scripts that movie scripts that I'm working on and looking to get funded. I got another family-friendly rom-com. So it's a family-friendly rom-com, and we've got some money behind one of those scripts. Yeah, nice. Already got some money and some more money coming in, investment money. Yeah. And so, very plugging away at all that.
That's really exciting about the movie being premiered in Reading, though, because you filmed a bunch of it here locally.
Yep, about 90% or so.
And then that was kind of the goal, right? To get that there.
Yep.
And that's really cool.
And so we definitely knew we had to do a premiere here in Reading. We just couldn't get a venue to do it that we could afford. And so now I've figured out other means of securing a Cinemark movie theater. And so I don't know if I didn't know this up until a number of years ago, but you can actually, at a movie theater, so the way we're doing it is movie theaters, you can rent out a movie theater usually at any theater and rent it out and then have a watch party for a movie.
Okay.
So what I did was just rented the theater at the movie Cinemark, Movies 14 here in town, and then we get them a file of our movie and they're going to play it, and then we sell the tickets for the theater that I rented.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Capitalism.
Yeah. Why not? That sounds great.
So that's how we're doing it.
Have you ever seen Billy Jack?
Yeah,
That's the old movie.
The martial arts one?
Tom Laughlin.
Yeah, you told me about it. I had never heard about it until you told me about it.
Oh my gosh. I love that movie. I've watched that movie probably 1,000 times. No kidding. Like,
really?
Well, they used to play it on TV like once a week, it seemed like.
Oh.
When I was a kid, the old USA Network or whatever.
Yeah, I remember USA.
But that was an independent film. And I guess the story is like he just drove around the country in his car and like, hey, I got this movie, and like let all the newspapers know, before the internet where you had social media, but like, and would basically do what you did, like rent out the theater, sell the tickets, and like do a premiere in every town with a movie theater that he went to.
I did not know that. That's That's interesting. And back when that movie came out, that was like in the 70s, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
early 70s.
So that was like a whole different era of like, you know, we don't have the communication that we have now for me to Google what theater is in the next town I'm going to. You had to call
the Yellow Pages.
Yellow Pages, yeah.
You know, but apparently at the time that was like one of the highest grossing independent films for a long time, I think.
Wow.
I mean, it's really not anything great. It's kind of a corny movie.
It is.
But for its time and for like when you think about what that guy did on his own, it's pretty impressive. I mean, that took some dedication and hard work.
Absolutely. And then it spawned like what, 3 or 4 sequels or something
like that. And each one was a little bit stinkier than the last, but hey, you know.
But like he kept getting like, you know, so, and I have, you know, I used to be like that. Like I used to watch, and I still do watch a lot of low budget independent films, and you kind of make fun of them, be like, oh, they're low budget. But now on my end, having made a quality low budget independent film, now I'm like, oh, I appreciate like seeing
hard work.
It is. It's hard work. And then just to know that guy, like what you just said, drove city to city.
I don't know if that's true, but that's the story I heard. You know,
probably truth to it.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, before I forget, I don't lose that train of thought, but I owe somebody a shout out, and my son Coltrane graduated the 8th grade. And,
ooh, congrats.
You know, a couple episodes back, I congratulated a couple of people that graduated, and my wife's like, "You forgot somebody." It's like, "Oh yeah." So Cole, congratulations! You did your family proud, and incredibly proud of you, son. So anyway,
good job, Coltrane.
Yeah, I love you, buddy. But yeah,
he just kept going, and
he just kept going. I mean, it probably wasn't easy. You know, I'm sure your dollar went a little bit further in the early 70s, but still, to do that and like have that drive of like, if I don't do it, who's going to?
Who's going to? And yeah, that's the position. I mean, a lot of times filmmakers these days, they think, oh, you make a movie and I'll turn it over to a distributor and they'll advertise it and they'll send it out to the movie theaters and the streaming places.
They'll do all the work.
They'll do all the work and they'll just send us a check. And like, that's not how it works. At least not on my level.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Maybe eventually somebody will be calling you and being like, "Hey, when's your next movie coming out?" But you know, it's funny. It takes a lot of self drive. Like, there's nobody. You know, like you're not punching a clock. You're not clocking in and going to work. You have to wake up and go, "Okay, well, today I'm doing these things. This task has got to be done." So if I want this thing to happen, I've got to be the driving factor there, you know.
It's kind of scary at times.
Oh, I'm sure. And you still, like, you don't know. There's so many unknowns, and chances are you're gonna fail. That's what the consensus is. You know what I mean? Like, the consensus says 9 times out of 10, the people that try this fail. And you know, it doesn't really matter how much hard work you put into it. You're really throwing the dice there, you know, and just crossing your fingers and praying to God or whatever. And like, okay, I hope this works, you know?
Right. Yeah.
But better to have tried and failed than to never tried at all. Mm-hmm. You know? I'm kind of in a weird headspace this week. I've had like some crazy stuff going on. And it's funny. I was at one of my stops yesterday, mm-hmm. and I had a text thread with my family and some friends about some important information that like I can't really say a whole lot about right now because it's kind of private, but that's going on, right? And like, hey, I'm gonna call you. No, wait, I need like 5 minutes. Wait, call me in a second. You know, I got somebody else calling me. I've got my work stuff that I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to like make that a priority and get that done. But my personal phone keeps going off with all of these messages. I met a guy who I haven't vetted yet. Like he seems legit, but he was like interested in martial arts, interested in the podcast. He does some stuff. So I was trying to talk to him. My work's calling me on my work phone. Like all of these things are happening at the same time. And I'm just like, oh, this is too much. Like, holy crap, something's going to break here if I don't just like sit for a minute. So I like looked at the dude that I was talking to in person and was like, give me like 2 minutes. And then answered the work phone, dealt with that problem, told the family and friends, like, give me a second, went and threw all of my crap in the car and just sat down on the curb for like a minute and just was like, okay, breathe. Like, I got to calm down. I got to breathe, and I'll just deal with the most important thing first, and then just let everything else kind of trickle down. It wasn't anything serious. Like nobody was dying. Nobody had a heart attack. Nobody, you know what I mean? But it was like all of these things are at once. And like, I have a tendency to like my adrenaline gets going and I get real snappy. Mm-hmm. And like, I don't mean to, but people think it's short or forward of me. And I'll get like kind of gruff. So I was like, okay, I don't want to like freak out on anybody. And least of all, I want to freak out on my family or a coworker or a potential customer or, all of this stuff. So I was just like, okay, one thing at a time. All right, we can do this, and then I was able to handle it. But with all of that going on, I've been reflecting a lot about this, like our podcast and what we've been doing. And like, I keep running into this thought of like, okay, is this worth it? Like we spent money, like we've done all of this stuff. Is it worth it to keep going? First of all, it is. So don't get me wrong. And it's totally fun. And it's like the highlight of my week. Personally, I look forward to this every Saturday. And when I don't get to do it, just like martial arts, I get bummed out.
Yeah.
So like, I'm constantly thinking of things. Okay, what could we talk about? What could we do? Who could we bring on? What kind of quote can I read? What kind of, like, I'm just like geared towards that, But there's been times when it's turned into a real slog.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, dude, this is hard. It's taking time out from my family. It's taking time out from all of this other stuff. And is this worth it? And I find myself like asking myself, is this worth it? And I thought of you in your movie and like, you had to have felt that way at certain points, like getting into a fight with your buddy over a simple decision or like not being able to get it in the movie theater or, I mean, like there were struggles. There's obviously struggles along the way. Nothing's perfect. But like, well, there are times where you're like, am I barking up the wrong tree?
Every day.
Really? Really?
Every
okay,
day,
so I'm not alone in this boat.
Every day. Yeah, you have a just I mean, even, at this point, like at the point now where I'm at right now with the podcast, or not the podcast, the movie and the distribution, like I'm like, do I, is it worth it? Do I want to keep going? Is it worth the stress? And at this point, little money, very little money. Although I did get a nice check from our premiere yesterday. So
nice.
But so that's got to go to pay off some things for the company.
Yeah. You got to pay the bills first.
Got to pay the bills. Yeah. But all that money will just go right back into the company. But yeah, every day, I mean, but having the movie and having at this point where we are in distribution and the film and kind of like this, okay, we had this small theatrical run at a couple of theaters and now we're kind of in this limbo and I'm looking for distribution, where to go with it now. And, the thoughts start creeping in. Oh, well, do we just throw in the towel? Like, do I
Yeah,
just like,
yeah. Are we done?
Are we done?
Yeah.
Like, what's next? And I, everything that I've learned up to this point in this process of doing the movie, and it would be absolutely foolish and stupid to back out and quit.
You'd be shooting
point.
yourself in the foot.
Yeah, like to
it's
go,
done.
like to get all the. But I'm not talking about just like there's days. Like what I'm saying is there's days making movies, whether you're on the movie set or you're in the editing bay or I'm on the phone making decisions about where the film's going. You just there's days where you want to quit and throw in the towel and be like, I just want to go do something where somebody tells me what to do every day and I don't have to make decisions. And so and then you just want to quit. And I'm like, yeah, that'd be foolish. Everything I've learned and all the experience at this point, like that'd be like, quitting after you get your first semester at college done. It's like, well, you've already got one done, like, your next semester, and then you've all of a sudden got a degree. Like, so
that's wild. That's wild. And I'm sure that there have been people that have come up to you and have been like, hey, super proud of you, or gave you encouragement, or your movie's great, or and that stuff helps. That kind of like fuels the fire. Like, okay, I could go one more day.
Yeah. Like, there was in my movie, the actress that plays my character's mom, that actress took her sister to see the film. She went, the actress herself went and saw the film like 3 times when it was in the theaters locally. Okay. But she took her sister one time, and as soon as she got out of the theater, she texted me and said that her sister started crying at this one point in the film, where everybody cries. Not everybody, but a large number of the audience members are like, "Oh man, it's such a touching moment." I don't want to ruin it.
Yeah.
It's a touching moment in the movie.
Spoilers.
But that text came on a day where I was just like, man, like this movie stuff is like, it's tough, and having to always be thinking the next decision of what I'm doing and where I'm taking the company in the movie. That text comes through and you're like, oh,
I can do this again.
Yeah.
Like, I can go one more day.
Yeah. We touched somebody's life to where they saw something and started tearing up. Like, okay, like that's worth it.
And you can stand on that. Like, you made that. That was yours, and how cool is that?
Yeah.
And like, you had an effect on somebody in a positive way.
Yeah.
I haven't had anybody cry telling me about this podcast,
but they've laughed.
but I've had a number of people come up to me in points where I was really questioning like what I was doing. And like, okay, and I always say barking up the wrong tree, but like, am I just wasting my time and wasting Tyler's time and wasting, you start doubting. There's always a point of doubt, and I had a couple of different people come up to me at those points and just like, hey, I see you. And it did 2 things for me. One, it was like, oh, cool. So I am doing something right. It made me feel good about it. Like, it made me feel like, okay, I am doing something that's positive. So ultimately, I want to have a positive impact on things. I don't want to be like, well, you made me want to kill myself. I don't want that. I want to have a positive impact, but it made me feel like, oh, okay, I'm doing the right thing, or I'm doing something of value.
Yeah,
irregardless of like, if this doesn't get any bigger than where it is right now, which it's slow, steady growth, which is great. It's having something, and it's like, oh, that's cool. That's rewarding. That works. And that thing is so, it's like that one little thing that's like, okay, I could do this. I did it. I can keep going. It's worth, I got to keep itching that, scratching that itch. It's worth it to keep going there. And there's so many things like that in life, like whether it's a career or martial arts or family or relationships, no relationship is perfect. You're always going to have like a spat, whether it's with your parents or your kids or your spouse or your girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, and it's like, okay, well, do I just quit? Do I just give up on that because they don't see eye to eye with me? that's dumb.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
there are things where, you know, there's a fine line, you know, obviously there's certain lines you just don't cross. Obviously, I'm not saying that you should be in an abusive relationship or anything like that. But if like, it's like, can I work through this? Is it worth it to work through whatever this problem is? And, like with your movie, obviously you work through whatever that feeling was of like,
Correct.
oh, this is, I don't want to do this. This is hard right now. Well, yeah, that feeling's temporary. That feeling of like, ah, gosh, I've been doing this for 12 hours. Can I do, there's no end in sight and I'm going to have to do it until it's done.
Right.
Okay. You know, it was worth all of it. Was it worth all of that? It had to have been.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, that's a bucket list item, right?
Yeah.
You got a movie that you made in a theater.
That I wrote,
Directed,
produced.
acted
No, I didn't
in?
direct, but
Oh,
wrote,
okay.
produced, starred in.
Yeah. I mean, like, not many people can put that on a resume.
Yeah.
And be honest about it.
Yeah, that's you know, and it is. It's a very rewarding experience, and you look back and all the you know, it's like you look over your shoulder and where you were, you know, and where,
Yeah.
and then back forward where you're going, and you're like, man, all these roadblocks, and it was nice to. It gives you history with yourself when you see all those roadblocks, and you know, you see how we overcame those, or we went around them, or we went under them, or we, you know.
Yeah. And then, you know, when you get through a problem or roadblock or whatever, when you get to the other side of that, you kind of look back sometimes and go, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was.
Exactly.
Or you laugh about it. You know, when you're in the middle of it, it's hell. It's absolute hell. It's so hard. Everything sucks. Da, 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 da. And then you get through it. And you look back and you're like laughing with your buddies or your family, or you're like, oh, remember that time we were eating top ramen because we couldn't afford to pay the electric bill or whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And then you're like, oh yeah, that was so crappy. Right?
Yep. But it gave such fond memories, like you're saying.
Well, it's like,
I could have given fond memories.
Yeah. I mean, obviously at the time it sucked and it was not fun. But the sadistic part of people, like, you laugh about it later, you know, it's like, oh man, I remember that. And it was so terrible. You know? But they're character builders, you know.
That's what they are. I've got a quote. Let me look this up while I
go ahead.
Keep going.
I'll just keep talking because I can do that all day. So,
no, keep
worries.
going. They're character builders.
They're
This is
character
going to add to
builders.
what you're saying.
Yeah, they're character builders, and they're things that, like, I'm trying not to be like tooting our own horns here. I don't want to do that, but like, my point for saying all of this is, I went and seen a guy speak 25 years ago. This guy who was like one of my heroes. He's an author, musician, actor, really awesome guy, and he's very much a personality of like, very abrupt, very kind of a gruff person.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he said on stage after speaking for 3 hours straight or 2.5 hours straight and not taking a break and not taking a sip of water in that entire time.
2.5 hours?
2.5 or 3 hours.
Wow.
Went straight. I was sitting front row center stage watching him in awe. Ultimate showman that way, in that aspect. But one of the things he said before he said goodnight was, if I can do this, meaning if I can write books, act in movies, sing on stage, talk in front of you all, imagine what you can do. And he said, thank you and good night, and walked off the stage. And it just stuck with me. I was like, okay, what can I do? Like, I can get through this. I can get through this crap that I'm dealing with now. So can you, you know, kind of thing. Anyway, go ahead. What was your quote?
No. I'm following. I've got it right here. I'm following along with what you're saying. I think I heard it. I heard a speaker one time talk about a very similar thing, just different wording. They said, Well, I always view successful people or just people that can do whatever and succeed and follow their passions. Those people are cut from the same cloth as me. They're not cut from a different cloth, meaning
We're all human.
We're all human. We all have the same, he's basically just said, we are cut from the same cloth. Like we're not, like they're no different.
Yeah.
If one man can do it, I can do it too.
Yeah.
Now I know there's reality that collides with that quote, type thing. Like, so, but that's not that's not up for me to determine, to tell, somebody, oh, you can't
do this.
You can't do that.
Yeah. You're not the gatekeeper of that.
Yeah. So anyway, so
did you find your quote?
I do. I got my quote. So it's a Bible verse. Okay. And so you may have heard it. It's Romans 5:3-5. And this is looking like, okay, so this is from the New International Version. And it says, not only so, but we glory in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not put us to shame because God's love has been poured out in our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. Now, the part that I wanted to focus on was that because we know that suffering produces perseverance, character, and character, hope. Yeah, I think that's really good.
Yeah. I had a boss who would give you a really crappy job, and then he would kind of smile and he'd be like, "Don't worry, this is a character builder." and he'd kind of laugh. And the first couple of times he did it, it was like you were resentful, right? You're like, you're just giving me crap work because you don't want to do it, dude. And after a while, it got to the point where I was like, all right, give it to me. Like what can you give me here? 'Cause, I'm ready for
That's
it.
That's a character builder.
Yeah.
That's it, and it's those times, we did one of our early podcasts. I still remember it that I did was the walk through the door one where, and that, it's those days, like you have those weeks and you're talking, you got frustrated and then you sat on the curb and threw all your stuff in the car,
just had to breathe.
You just had to breathe. And those are the moments where it's like, you just gotta for lack of a better word, you've got to like stay in them. Like, obviously we don't like being in those moments, but you got to like go through it, like stay in them and go through them.
Yeah.
Because then on the other side, like you're talking about it right now.
Yeah. and it's wild. I've had one of my customers just opened a new business, and the guy works 7 days a week. And it's open to close. He goes to the first business. He's got good employees that he trusts, that he's got them running it. But he goes in, checks everything out, makes sure the bills are paid, makes sure things are working, everything's right. Then he runs over to the new business that's going. And open to close every day. And, it's kind of like what you got to do. And every time I see him, he's smiling, he's happy, but it's got to be exhausting. It has to be.
It has to be.
But what you got to do, I guess.
Yeah. And that's you just got to do what you got to do. Like, there's no like clock in, clock out kind of thing. I'm sure with like the movie stuff, when you're filming, it's like, well, we got to do this for the 100th time because we didn't get it right the first 99. Yep. Yeah. And you gotta know when that you got it, oh, we got the shot, So, but yeah, no, that's, having multiple businesses that you have to go check on, like, and that's it. So like he has like what, 7 businesses? You said
3.
Oh, yeah. And so he'll go like
Monday
and Tuesday, Wednesday, and visit all of them, and then like.
Well, the main one he's had for like 20 something years.
Okay.
So that's pretty self-sustaining. It's working now. He's got his son running it. And so he kind of just checks on it, make sure everything's the way it's supposed to be. And then he's going to the new one. You know, I don't know what his like work pattern is, but it's like every time I see him, it's like, hi, bye, I got to run.
Yeah.
And he's just going. But I was like, man, does the guy ever stop? You know, it's inspiring. It's like, wow. Okay, well, I guess keep going. I can work my 12-hour shift, you know? But you know, with anything, like training martial arts, like there were times where it was like, I can't make it today. I just like mentally, I can't do this today.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to go through the door. I got to get through there. I got to keep pushing forward. Progress is still progress, no matter if you measure it in inches or miles.
Yeah.
You know? And I think the effort put forth sometimes is worth more than the progress made.
I have to think about that one. The effort put forth is sometimes better than the progress made. Yeah. Because then the next time the effort will probably most likely make a little bit more progress.
Yeah. Well, and like, especially if something good for you, you know, like there's times I wake up and I'm like, I'm not exercising today. I don't want to. I don't want to do it. I'm going to sit on the couch. I'm going to drink my coffee and I'm just going to sit here because I'm exhausted. I'm tired. No, you know, I'm like, okay, embrace that suck. Let's go. Like this morning, right? This morning we got Saturday's class. We're getting ready to do Saturday class and
It's Saturday.
Nobody showed up.
Yeah.
Sorry. I just like blanked here. Saturday, nobody showed up. It was just me and the two kids, two of my three kids. Hunter's not feeling very good. So, they're like, oh, what are we going to do? We're going to play. We're going to do this. I'm like, no, we're still doing class. But I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it either. Nobody's here. It's just us, but we're going to do class. And today it's going to be a little bit looser. We're going to just have fun with it, but we're still doing class and we're going to work hard. So let's get it on, you know, get your gear on. Let's go. And I feel 1,000% better than I did before we started.
Absolutely.
You know, it's hard to stay motivated when you're basically on your own. Because my kids, they're young, you know, 14 and 9. They're going to sit around and play if they're given the opportunity. I'm like, no, we got to do something. Oh, I don't want to do class. Nobody's here, you know. I'm like, I don't either, dude. I didn't tell them that, but I was like, I don't either, dude. But we're going to do it anyway, because if I start down that road of taking the easy way out, I'm going to be in trouble. Mm-hmm. Like, so let's go, you know?
Well, and what you did to show up and you didn't know, but you had no idea that nobody was going to show up today. Obviously you're teaching the class. You've got to show up regardless. You can't just be like, oh, I think nobody's going to show up, so like, I won't go. Like, you have to show up. But it, like, when I walked in, you know, 35 minutes after the class started, it was nice to see you guys actually training. And like, it was just you guys could just been like, oh, well, we're not even going to bow in. Like, like, here we are. Like, let's just, okay, guys, go get on your phone and I'll go
do whatever.
Yeah. But you were like, no, nobody's here. We're still going to do it.
And we're still going to uphold all of the
standards and the discipline. Yeah. That was drilled into me in the Army. And that was one of the Army values that they drilled into us was integrity. And integrity is doing what's moral and what's right, even when no one's looking. So that was a demonstration of integrity. So well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Because nobody was here to see you bow everyone in and bow out and get the equipment. I mean, you guys didn't even have to put your belts on.
No.
Or you could have put them on goofy, you know, whatever.
But
that was pretty cool, you know, and not saying I didn't expect that, you know, but it did. Nobody was going to tell on me if I didn't do it.
if we just canceled class, nobody was going to be like, oh, well, shame on you.
Yeah. And it was probably too, cause you got to drive 25 minutes to get here.
25, 30-minute drive.
To get here. Yeah. So you're like, well, I'm driving down there, so it better be worth it. We better make it worth it. So that was cool, to see that. But yeah, that was one of the Army values that they instilled in me in the Army was integrity, and it's doing what's right even when especially when
nobody's looking. It's too bad more people don't follow that.
Yeah.
Looking at you, government.
There was the one time, because we're one of the dojo rules we have at our karate schools. You can't wear your belt outside class, physically outside the dojo. You have to remove it from your uniform before you exit the dojo, and you don't wear it outside the dojo. Your house, whatever, but you don't have your belt on and go into McDonald's.
Yeah.
And so, but one time. It was me and Sensei Court at the end of class, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna work out for a little bit, and he's like, okay, well, you can you lock up? And I was like, yeah, sure, I got my key. He leaves. For whatever reason, I decided I was like, oh, I'm gonna go too. And so a couple minutes later, and I walked out of the dojo, and nobody's in the dojo, nobody's in the parking lot, but I walked out and forgot to take my belt off, and I walked out the door and opened the door and took a step outside, but I was outside the dojo, and I was like, say a bad word here or something, but you're like, crap. And so I set my bag down, and I did. And if you walk outside the dojo with your belt on, you got to do, 25 push-ups?
Something like that.
25 push-ups. Yeah. And so I'm like, oh man. And then that integrity kicked in my head.
Rules are rules.
My Army training. And I was like, I got to do 25 push-ups. And then so I get down on the ground right in front of the door, and I just start doing my push-ups, my 25 push-ups. Well, Blaine, Sensei, forgot something. And so he comes at the dojo. He comes driving back into the parking lot because he forgot something. And he sees me over there doing push-ups. He's like, what in the world is Tyler doing?
Are you on drugs?
Yeah. Yeah. And he's like, hey, Tyler, I saw you. Did you wear your belt outside the dojo? And I was like, yeah. And so he was like, oh, okay. He's like, well, that's good to know you're still doing your push-ups, even though no one's here to see that.
Your integrity.
Yeah. And that even goes back to the book we talked about a while back, the Zen and the Martial Arts. Mm-hmm. There's a story in there where the sensei does something similar. The author Joe Hyams talks about there's a respect that comes with having a dojo. When you're in the dojo, you respect it, right? And I'm not talking some people may respect it religiously. I'm just talking just as a space, you clean you keep your house clean and tidy, right? Because you respect it and you want to take care of it. Same thing with the dojo. Or your friend that's the business owner that has 3 businesses, that he respects it and takes care of it. So, but the story is in Zen and the Martial Arts is that sensei said, well, there's no cussing in my dojo. And then,
I remember that.
You remember that? And so then one of there was some student that accidentally cussed in the dojo, and the sensei, I don't remember what the punishment was. I think push-ups. I think it was push-ups or something.
I can't recall,
but he was like, we keep this place, we're respectable and we're not going to use profanity here. And so you need to do these push-ups or whatever. And so then the student did it. And then I think Joe Hyams, there was an evening where he was in the dojo and his sensei thought he left, and he was in the dark, and he heard his sensei drop something and cuss, and then a minute later he heard his sensei counting off push-ups in another room. Yeah. I think that's how the story. I might have butchered it, but it's just that even the sensei upheld his own code for the dojo even when he thought no one was there.
Looking. Yeah.
And apologies if I butchered that story, but that's how I remember it.
Whether it's a church or a martial arts school or any place that you have respect for, everyone should have respect for it, not just some people.
Yeah.
Right. I guess that's the American in me. Like if I went to the White House, I've never been to the White House, but if I went to the White House, I would like to think that I would be respectful and like, and courteous and try and do all of the things by the right protocol because it's the White House.
It's the White House.
Irregardless of who's in office or who's sitting there right now or tomorrow or next year or whenever, I would I would like to think that I would be like honored to be there and be respectful. It's the same thing if I go into church, even if I don't worship there or necessarily agree with what it is, I would try and be respectful.
Yeah.
You know, when I come in here, I think the same way. It's like, it's not my building, but it is my building in a way. I put a lot of time and effort and work here, and this is a place of work. This is a place where I focus and try and become a better human being. So like, I'm going to be respectful. That's a cool story. I forgot about that in that book, Zen and the Martial Arts. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah. That's really interesting story. So yeah. Yeah, so that's what I have to say on that. I don't know what else you can say. It's just elaborate. It's just you know, it's that respect and upholding that integrity, you know, within yourself, and I think definitely having integrity with yourself will not having that integrity of being like, okay. And this may not be the full right use of that word, but like, okay, I'm having a bad week, or like you were saying, like the podcast, like,
am I barking up the wrong tree here?
Am I barking up the wrong tree? Like, is it worth it? And then, but you've got to, it's almost like making an emotional decision based in the moment. And sometimes we got to do that, right? Sometimes you don't have time, but like in that case, you're feeling down and you're like, oh man, like, I don't know. But it's like upholding yourself to a higher standard that says, hey, I'm 62 episodes in.
Yeah.
Why would I stop now or whatever? And we're not saying we're stopping, but
no, and I'm not, there's no way.
No,
but it's amazing to have like, try not to sound look at me right now. You know what I mean? Like, no. I'm just trying to sound like, you know, it's a cool thing to be like, hey, I saw what you did.
Yeah.
You know, but what that's done for me, like, okay, so the story is, okay, let me back up a little bit. So I was really struggling in work. I had like a long freaking day ahead of me, and I was just feeling down and just kind of questioning. It was one of those days where you start questioning everything you've done, all of your life decisions, you know, like, gosh, well, I wonder if I would have listened to like my parents or my teachers, if life would have been a little different, you know, one of those kinds of days. Right. So I'm just questioning everything in my life. Like, oh. And somebody happened to come up to me and be like, hey, man, I heard an episode of your podcast. This was like last year. So this was like back in like episode 35, maybe somewhere in there, you know. And hey, I heard what you did, and I really like it. You know, you guys keep doing it. It's good work. I was like, wow. Oh, okay, cool, you know. But what it did, like, first of all, it made me feel great. It made me feel like, oh, well, I'm doing something right. But what it made me do was like kind of reflect and go, that really feels good when people do that to me. Yeah. To you. You should do that to others. So I've made a point of trying to recognize the work I see others do. Coworkers doing something. Hey, awesome job. Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, bosses or my own family, like my kids or my wife, like, hey, I see you. You're doing something that's awesome. Keep it up. And so I've tried to make a point in telling people when I see them do stuff. Because it's cool, like everyone likes to be recognized, right? Like who doesn't like to be told that, hey, you're doing something good.
Yeah.
Right. So
right.
like instead of like making me feel all awesome and like sticking my chest out, which it did, it made me feel really good, but it made me go, hey, like if you like that, put that energy out there. You need to start making a habit of telling people when you see them do something cool.
Yeah.
And so like, here's my little corner of the world, and I'm going to try and make it better by letting people know.
I see you. Yeah. And that's like, that was passed to you. Somebody said that.
Somebody said that to me, and I was like,
you.
hey. Yeah, but instead of like walking around like, oh, my stuff's awesome. I just was like, hey, that made me feel good. Let's pass that on. Like one good deed deserves another kind of thing. I don't know.
No, you do know. Yeah, you do know.
Yeah, but it was cool. It was cool. So
that is real. And now
you're going.
And now you're passing it on. And now that one person.
I'm trying to.
Yeah, yeah. But and that's what I was thinking of too. Like where you're saying like, oh, there was one day in the middle of our 3.5 weeks of filming our movie that the director of the film, who was also one of the stars, my friend Luke, he comes to me. I won't say everything we talked about, but he comes to me and he's basically like, he's mid-20s, early to mid-20s. And I've known him since 2016. So 8 years.
So you know who he is.
I know who he is. Yeah. And so, about 7.5, 8 years. And so anyways, he comes to me and he says, he's, and I could just tell he was off on one day on the set. And I was like, hey, you okay? And he's like, I don't know if I want this anymore. I don't know if I want to be a filmmaker. I don't know if I want to direct movies and be in them. He's like, and we were having a rough time, and it was about the middle of the shoot, about a week and a half in. The hump, the Wednesday of the shoot. The hump day, So, and so he's like, well, I don't know if I want that, and I was like, I know, man. I was like, I get it. I was like, I've been there, and I was there about a week before he was. I'm like, I don't know if like,
is this worth it?
Is this worth it? Am I waking up every day and I'm going and filming a movie, and what difference is this having on the world and all that, And so, but he said, I don't know. And I didn't sit there and try to say, oh, it is. I didn't sit there and say, oh, no, you're right. It's not. I just said, drive on. Just keep going. And now that was a momentary thing. And I just said, keep going, just drive on. And that's a military term that drive on, just drive on. And just basically don't give up. And so I told him, I was like, just drive on. Let's just get through this. And now it's just, that's a memory. But the nice thing is that I think a person in their journey on whatever they're doing in life, whether it's a passion, a hobby, a job, whatever, I think that's an important point you have to hit. I think it's a natural process to hit that point where you say, was this worth it? Do I want to keep going? Mm-hmm. And I think a person really has to go through that period to really be fully developed, so that after that, then you can really blossom. And if somebody doesn't go through that and they never doubt it, okay, I'm sure there's people that have done fine. So I'm not saying you have to go through that, but man, in my opinion, that's a necessary step. You have to
test your mettle.
You have to test your mettle.
Yeah, you got to see what you're made of.
And then that comes up and is, am I going to quit now? I keeps going back to, I believe I talked about it on the podcast of when I was a kid, I always wanted a tree house, and we had a tree picked out at my parents' place. And I just for years, I told my dad, hey, I want a tree house. And I just never stopped bugging him. And he would spend a couple hours looking up at the tree and formulating in his mind, I'm going to put the floor here. I'm going to put some, walls here. And so one day he actually got up there and he hammered a 2x4, about 7 foot long and 2x4. And that was the first nail he put in, first board he put in of the treehouse. And I was like, okay, we're started. And we never did anything after that. And that one board is still up in that tree to this day. I see it and I'll look up, and in a way I guess I'm making the best of the situation, but I look at that board that's up in that tree and I'm like, oh, like that's what that looks like when you start and you don't finish, and you quit it. Like if you think about it,
oh man,
before you start something and after something's done. So whatever that point is, right? After something's done. But if you quit one step into your journey or stop, man, that's like you started, then you stopped, versus like, okay, I started and we got halfway through the treehouse and then we stopped, but you're still stopping right after you started, like it's just the ratio of, did you start 10 feet did you stop 10 feet into your journey, or did you stop 10 miles into your journey? But it's still stopping and quitting. And so it's again, not making commentary on my dad or anything like that. Like it's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying we started, but we never finished. And it's kind of, it's morphed into a good lesson. Like for years I was like, man, I wanted my treehouse. And
But yeah, you're like, oh, we're not doing that. I'm not going to do that again.
No.
Yeah.
Nope. Yep. You're right. And so like, and that's, but I mean, and this is a subject for another podcast, is knowing when to stop.
I was going to say there's a dichotomy there.
Yeah.
Because obviously there are things that you're like, oh, this is not healthy for me.
Yep.
Or this is not good for me. Or this is not what I thought it was.
Yeah. And so that's definitely another topic.
Yeah. There are obviously times when you should be like, I had a friend who we should cut this short soon.
Yeah.
But I had this friend who had a very interesting way of looking at life. He was actually a friend of my family's. He's much older than I am. He was a father himself. But I remember in some of my more wayward years, I ran into him at the grocery store buying beer. And he's like, he kind of looked at me, not like disapproving, but he was just kind of like, one of those kinds of thoughts. I mean, this guy was pretty close to our family and knew that I was kind of getting a little wild, but he never was like judgmental. He never was like, oh, like tisk or anything like that. He was just kind of like, And so he started talking to me, and I had told him I had moved out. I moved in. I had a roommate, and we were doing some stuff and having a good time, and just filled with exuberance of being youthful and all of that. And he's like, so I told him where I'd moved to, and where I'd moved from my parents' house, and he's like, oh, that's a lateral move, isn't it? And I kind of looked at him like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, I look at things like this. There's 3 moves you can make. It's an upward move, a downward move, or a lateral move. I was like, kind of stopped. He's like, it's not really an upwards move, is it? And I'm like, I guess not. He's like, and it's not a down move. It's just a lateral. He's like, you didn't gain anything. You didn't lose anything. I was like, oh, all right. And he just kind of left it at that.
That's interesting.
But it made me really think about like the next decisions that I had to make with my life. I didn't change my life completely. Like I still was, I had to go down that path a little bit further.
Yeah.
Make some more mistakes.
Yeah.
But it was something that stuck with me, But yeah, same thing though. Like, there are things that you kind of run across and you go, this isn't what it needed to be, or this isn't worth it, or this isn't healthy for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And those are signs, but I mean, you get into difficult times and you really got to say like, do I stop or do I keep going? And I think that's a really important point to be. But like you're saying, there's a great meme, right, that I've been seeing a couple of times recently on Facebook, and it shows this guy and he's working on his car and he's got the tire off and the meme says something to the effect of like, I thought this was a 30-minute job, but now it's turned into a multi-day job and I'm sitting here questioning the meaning of life. You know, and he's got this bummed out look on his face. It kind of sounds like what you were talking about. I mean, you know, it could be something as simple as, you know, you get a flat tire and all of a sudden now it's the universe is coming apart at the seams.
Well, if you've never had one before, you don't know what to deal with.
Yep. I go through those all the time. Like,
I think that's
making fun of it, but I'm laughing at it.
Yeah, at the same time. I think it's a human trait. Though.
Absolutely.
It's got to be a human trait where, like, problems are mountains, no matter how insignificant. And then once you get on the other side of that mountain, it's like, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's but you know, every single time, you know, everything that somebody does, like every time you attempt something, like every time we attempt something, right? You get better at something usually, right?
Oh, yeah.
You get better. You don't really get worse, and it gives you a better perspective.
Well, if it's worthwhile, yeah, for sure. You've learned something. I mean, you're going to make more movies.
Yeah. All the stuff I've learned now, why would I? It would be foolish to
stop.
Yeah. You know?
And the next movie you make is going to be better.
Mm-hmm. We can only go up.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the only direction I got is up.
But like this podcast compared to like 62 episodes ago, 63 episodes ago,
oh man,
you know, it was rough and tumble, and it's still rough and tumble to a certain extent, but like, we just try and get a little bit better, right? Like, it's fun. I'm excited. I look forward to this every week, like I was saying earlier. But it's all of the problems that I faced the first time versus now, it's like that problem was almost a deal breaker for me, and now it's like, oh, okay. I already finished that. You know, I mean, the movie thing's got to be the same way. Like your friend Luke, you know, sitting down and talking with you and be like, I don't know if I want to be a director anymore. And now if you asked him, he'd probably be like, yeah, when's the next one? Let's go.
Yeah.
You know, but you're going to get that feeling again. There's something. It might not be the same thing. It might be something related. That feeling is going to come back. You're going to go, am I doing the right thing? I'm questioning my life decisions right now. And that, I believe, is a universal truth.
Yeah, it is.
It has to be.
It has to be. Everybody goes through that. Yeah.
Drive on.
Drive on.
Drive on, baby.
Walk through that door.
Yeah. I think we're good. We're good. Friends, have a wonderful evening. I hope you enjoyed this as much as we enjoyed making it. Also, check us out. We got our website up, formlesspod.com. We've got all of our social media links there. We have a store. It works. It's there. There's goods to buy. You could buy tapestries like you see on our table if you're watching on YouTube. Nice hats that make you look dapper. Sweaters, shirts, pillows. All sorts of good stuff. Yeah. Enjoy.